Hello, I'm Jody Wolf, and you're watching Expoz. Topic: Raptured. Overview. Book of Revelations, beginning in chapter 3. Letter to the seven churches. God describes to the churches, to the world, what lies before them whose name was written in the book, and those names not written in the book. Chapter 4, verse 1. A door opened in heaven, and the first voice was as a trumpet. Come up here, and I will show you the things that must come hereafter. That is the rapture of the church. Chapter 4, God describes the throne. Chapter 5, all who were in heaven, the 4 and the 20 elders, the smells of heaven, the music in heaven, and the Lamb in heaven, who would open the book with the seals, and only Jesus could open the book. All of heaven worshiped him. God had turned all over to the Lord at this time. Chapter 6, the Lamb opens the seals. The first seal describes Satan, who rode the white horse. He had a bow, but no arrow, and he would see all nations, and he would go and conquer them. Chapter 7, seal of God upon 144,000 from the 12 tribes of Israel. They went throughout the world to witness to all people. Chapter 7 also tells us what heaven will be like in the end. The tribulation saints, no more tears, no more thirst, no more hunger, no more sun. God is the light and the living fountains of water. Chapter 8, back to the seventh seal, which announced the next judgments, the trumpet judgments, as angels sounded all trumpets 1 through 6. Chapter 20 verse 8, Satan bound for 1,000 years. This will be repeated later. Chapter 20 verse 7, final revolt of Satan. This will be again. I'll come back to that later. Chapter 9, angels sounded the fifth and the sixth trumpets. The fifth, stars fell from the heavens, and one had the key to the bottomless pit and described what came out of the pit, along with a smoke like fire from a great furnace. And it was dark in those days. And in those days, man tried to kill themselves for the fear, but death fled from them. Then the locusts came. Then the locusts were described in what the locusts did to man. 6 angels sounded. The 4 angels in the river Euphrates came out for 1 hour, 1 day, 1 month, 1 year to kill 1/3 of men. Still, man would not repent. Then the 200 million men described. This is still in the future, not in chapter 9. Fire, smoke, brimstone kills 1/3 of all men. One of their that came from the bottomless pit, one of them rather, his name was Apollyon. And you all hear Tom Horn talk about that. Apollyon, still in the 6th chapter, tells of the plagues, the stings, the sores, and the witches. Still continues to hurt man, and they were hurt by that came from the trumpets sounding. Chapter 10 continues describing all that's happening, and still man will not repent. Chapter 11, the 7th trumpet sounded. 2 witnesses came to prophesy throughout the Mid-East. they would prophesy for 3.5 years. And this is the first 3.5 years of time. They'll be gone the second 3.5 years. Seventh trumpet also brings the vial judgments. The world is under the control of the Antichrist. Chapter 11, verse 11 again repeats chapter 4. Come up here when the doors of heaven opened. Now the dead witnesses that lie in the streets for 3.5 days, God called them, and they rose and they ascended to heaven. The world partied, the world feasted and gave presents to one another because the two witnesses were dead. But when the two witnesses rose and ascended to heaven, the world didn't know what to do. Chapter 12. Now we're in chapter 12. So this is a repeat of what we are been talking about, or have been talking about for a year now, which is heaven rejoices as the nations and the earth grew more angry. Get this. Heaven rejoices as the nations on the earth grew more angry, for great wrath comes upon them. Heaven wants the pain to end. Chapter 12. A woman, a child, a dragon, and Satan, cast from heaven by Michael. Then Satan persecutes the woman, that is Israel, and the man-child, the king star, the church, is caught up to heaven. This is again verifying what happened in chapter 4, verse 1. The woman fled into the wilderness. This is Petra, Jordan. Angels took her away and protected her on the wings of eagles. And we can assume C-30 transports moved several million Jews into the Jordan desert where Petra is, and where Petra is going to protect the Jews for remaining 3.5 years. Vials poured out upon man. Man still would not repent. War over the entire earth. Chapter 13, verse 18, the false prophet came to give every person who would receive the mark in his hand or his forehead. The number of the mark is the number of man, 666. Chapter 14, wars, death continues. Chapter 15, prepare for the last 7 plagues. Angel poured out wrath from all 7 bows upon men on earth. Chapter 16, wrath continues. Verse 15, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watched for me, for I came at a time when you know not. Chapter 16, verse 17, the 7th angel poured out his vial into the air, and then a great voice saying, it is done. Chapter 17, the harlot mystery explained. Chapter 18, the fall of Babylon, rejoicing from heaven for Babylon's destruction. Babylon is fallen. Chapter 18, verse 4, a voice from heaven said, come out of her, my people, that ye were not partakers of her sins, and ye received not of her plagues. Then chapter 18:8, for in one day she shall be utterly burned with fire. Chapter 18, verse 9, all who were left cast dust on their heads, and they cried, they were weeping, they were wailing, and they all say that they were gone in 1 hour. This is the Illuminati. Those who came, get this, those who committed all types of sin, those who are made rich at the expense of innocent people. You see this and you know this today, people. those who love power and wealth like heroin and cocaine to an addict, those who forced nations under their feet like North Korea and like America's trying to do today to the United States, except God has a man in place to prevent that. The rulers who were tortured all people for power, for their power and fear. Those today who prevent nations from healing as the U.S. is today. Our people on the left, they're preventing the healing of this nation, guys, and it's for the power, it's for the money. Again, it's like drugs to an addict. They who took the young and offered them to Satan, only there also had God sealed in them. Only those who were saved, rather, had God sealed in them. They were saved. The church who had gone to heaven prior to the Antichrist coming to power. Heaven described 1,000 years of peace under the Lord. And I'm going to go back and once again read the very last. Then came the judgment. Heaven comes to earth. Chapter 21 and 22. Heaven described forever. Again, Satan is released for a little time. A revolt upon millions of people left the peace and safety for 1,000 years and moved to the side of Satan once more to go and deceive again. They who moved to Satan were all cast into the pit, where fire and brimstone will burn forever and forever. Then heaven comes down to the earth. It is finished.